Hey everyone. So this week we're going to do two mini modules. We're going to do module 5B, which is on jQuery, and we're going to do module 5C on security. And for each one of those, there's a quick little assignment. It's like a one-page or less document in Microsoft Word where you just have to basically tell me what you plan on doing, how you plan on using jQuery for the project, and how you plan on integrating security issues into your final project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys two little quick videos on jQuery. It's not that hard, and I think you're really going to like it. It's going to make your life a lot easier, and I think you're going to want to use it in the final project. But it is expected that you will use it in the final project. So two quick videos on that. There's some exercises as well, which you can try if you want. And then I'm just going to have you read over the security module. There's just a few things to think about. It sort of also explains everything, a lot of the best practices, especially in PHP that we followed. It explains why we have to follow those best practices in more detail. In the live class, since that content is kind of more lecture-y, there's no real exercises that go with it, I'll just go over some examples of that in class. So I don't have a video on that yet, but we will have a video after this week's class. And then I'll also, we'll review some of the exercises from jQuery, make sure you guys are okay with that. And then we'll look at the two little one-pagers that I need you to write, which are going to be due, I think, the following Monday. Check the assignment box for the actual due date. So anyways, we're doing jQuery. If you want to get information about jQuery, it's all at jQuery.com. It is a library, an add-in library for JavaScript, probably the most popular one out there for DOM manipulation. Although now with the advent of React and frameworks like that, DOM manipulation, some people say it's kind of obsolete, but a lot of people are still using it. So you can get the most recent version of it here. If you go download jQuery 3.5.1, you can get the compressed or the uncompressed. If you click on uncompressed, you get basically a JavaScript file, and then see it's called jQuery351.js, and you have to just save it as. Where is it? Save as, right there. But usually people use the compressed one, which is much harder to read. It's gone through a JavaScript compressor that gets rid of all the comments, changes all the variable names so that they're just one letter, gets rid of unnecessary white space, and so on. It really obfuscates the code, makes it hard to read. But it's less to download. So you can get it, and then you can include it in any project. There's other ways to get it as well. And if you want the documentation, it's right here. Okay, so the jQuery core is here. What else? DOM manipulation. Here we are. This is mostly what we're going to be doing. Manipulation, like that. Should get you methods like HTML, which we're going to look at today, ATTR, CSS, and is Val here as well? Yep, Val's here as well. So this is if you just click on manipulation, most of what you want is going to be in here, and you can click on these for a full explanation of what's going on. So that's the API. There is also if we go to the module here, there's a jQuery tutorial at W3 Schools, and we're going to cover this stuff. So lots and lots of places to get jQuery information. But like I said, it's not that hard. So I really don't think you're going to find it that difficult. What it lets you do is, so here's an example. Let's say we wanted to hide all of the divs with a class of aside. So we have to use query selector all in raw JavaScript. We have to use a for loop to go through them all, and then we have to get the indexing right to set the display to none. Or you can do it in one line in jQuery. So that's really the big, you can get tons and tons of stuff accomplished in a very small amount of code without having to write loops and stuff like that. So what you get with jQuery is you get what's called code economy. Your code becomes much easier to read, it becomes much shorter. What you lose is performance. So here there's a call to a special function called $, and then a separate call to a method of the object that returns called hide. Plus it creates some data structures in the background and so on. And then eventually at some point the code just does this, what we would have done anyway. So there's extra function calls, there's extra memory being used. But for the vast majority of your applications, the user's not going to notice that it's ever, that it's a few nanoseconds slower. So it's a good trade-off to lose a little bit of efficiency, but gain tons of code readability and performance. The other thing that you get from jQuery actually is you get cross-browser compatibility. So the other thing that goes on in the background is it checks in detail what browser you're using, and then makes sure that for some browsers behave a little differently than others. That used to be more of a problem than it is now, but it's still an issue. So if you're on Firefox, it might need to do something to correct for Firefox's idiosyncrasies versus Chrome's, and it just takes care of all of that for you. I mean, I've had a couple of projects where I've started off in raw JavaScript, had browser compatibility issues, and then, okay, change everything over to jQuery, and everything just works on all the browsers. So there's a huge benefit to using a library like this. And there's two ways to get it. One is to download it, include it in your project. This is an older version, 3.4.1, but it doesn't matter. And then just have a script file that loads it. That's probably the best way to do it, to be honest, because then you don't have to worry on, as long as your site is up, this will work and it will be able to load jQuery. You can also do it this way, which my examples do. You can get it from Google APIs, and you can put the version number in here. If you change that to 3.5.1, you'll get the most recent one. Okay, so that's how you can get. That's two different ways to get it. Now, in the code for this week, there's this thing called the jQuery sandbox, which, if you load it up, looks like this. And yeah, it's just all I did was I just created a little file here that it's got some ideas for what to do over here. It's got a bunch of elements in it. If we inspect it, this is a table, and the TDs are the TD elements are colored different colors because they have either the odd or the even class. The rows have IDs, so row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and there's this instructions box as well, and the whole thing has an ID of checkerboard, the div that contains that. And then there's this instructions div as well that contains all of this stuff. There's a UL element and LI. So I just wanted to have a bunch of different elements for you to play around with. So let's give it a try. Let's say that we want to change the heading here. Let's just do a hello world that changes this heading. I need to see. So it's got an ID of heading. So over here, oh, and by the way, we are loading the jQuery library right here in this script element from Google APIs. Okay, so it's being loaded from there. Go back to the console. The main jQuery function is called jQuery, but there's an alias for it that's just the $. So that's a legal function name in JavaScript, believe it or not. And they just use that because it's fewer keystrokes and it's shorter code. So if you remember, DOM manipulation is about selecting the element and then making changes to it, selecting the element or the group of elements. So if we go, what we do is we go $ and we just put as a string any CSS selector. And that will return the jQuery object, which is, you can treat it, well, you never have to unpack it, but I'm just showing you here. Basically, you get a list of an array of elements that matched that. No matter whether there's one element or 100 elements, you get an array. So if I go $td like that, I get an array that contains every single TD element. Okay, and if I go $td.even like that, then I get all of the TD elements that are yellow, the ones with the even class. Okay, so that's what the $ function, the jQuery function, does for you. But that's not all. Once you've got it, it gives you a bunch of methods that you can run as well. So let's go back to heading. So I go $hashtag heading, and then if I want to change the inner HTML of this to say hello world, there's a function for that, HTML hello world, like that. And this HTML function, by the way, has two uses. So if I just call it with no parameters like that, it retrieves for me the content, the inner HTML of the first matching element here. Okay, so if there's more than one element that matches, it just gives me the first one that it found. But if I go like this, it changes all of the matching elements. So you can see it's changed over here now. Okay, I can, and the real power of this is, I can change all the TDs at once, like that. Boom, one line, $TD. So that selects all the TDs, and then call the HTML function and change the contents to high for all of them. So that's pretty cool. What else can we do? We can change value. We can. So we got a form element down here. No, let's do some CSS first. So let's go hashtag heading, and then you can go .css color, comma, red, like that. Boom, it's red. That's how you do it. And here's something really cool. We also have this ability to do what's called chaining. So let's go, let's do it again, heading dot HTML goodbye, just so it changes. Okay, now the cool thing is that all of these jQuery methods, CSS, HTML, everything else I'm going to show you, those methods return the entire jQuery object again with everything inside of it. So they all end with a statement, return this, that just returns the current object. And that's a great trick to use because it lets you chain together a bunch of different calls. So I can go .html goodbye and then .css color blue, like that. And it's going to do both of those things. It changes it to goodbye and then it changes the color to blue pretty much instantaneously. And of course you can do that with a bunch of elements. So $td dot, let's change the odd TD elements. Let's give them no content and change the background color. You can use the hyphenated or the camel case version to, I don't know, white. There we go. I just cleared them all out and changed them to white, all of the odd TD elements. So that's pretty cool. Very, very powerful, useful. You can see, I'm sure you can see why people would want to use it. So we've got HTML, CSS. By the way, the other thing is that, so if I go, I think this big guy here is called instructions. Let me just check that. Yeah, it looks good. So instructions. All of these functions I'm showing you have two versions. So I want to know the background color of this. I just leave off the setting parameter, just like with HTML. With no parameters, it tells me the current HTML. With one parameter, it can set the HTML. Here, with one parameter, it just tells me what the background color is. And with two parameters, it'll set the background color. What it does is, though this is really powerful, it searches through all of the rules and all of the style sheets and everything, as well as the style attribute of the element itself, to figure out what the color is, and then returns to you usually an RGB encoded version of that color. So it's telling I can find out what the background color is, and I can change it, of course, as well. I can also change attributes. So let's look this link here, which you can see in the corner there, if it's not blocked by my face. This link goes to google.com. So if I go, it's got an ID of Google link .attr, so that's for attribute. If I want to get the attribute, I want to know what's the href it shows me, and if I want to set it, I can go http://example.com, like that. And now I've changed it, and you can see down in the corner it says example.com. So this link now goes to example.com. Open link in new tab. There it is. Okay, so I've got HTML, CSS, attr. The other thing that we do a lot is we change the value of an input element. So here's an input element called, it's just got a name of text field. So what I'll do is, there's a bunch of things that you can do here. The dollar function, which you usually use to give you, usually use it with a selector. You can also do like this, document.forms.my, what is it called? Testform.text field. So you can, in a pinch, what did I do wrong? test form and text field have a capital F in them. That's what I did wrong. So you can, in a pinch, just take any object that you get, any DOM object that you get, and wrap, here it is, see? Wrap the jQuery function around it. You don't have to use, mostly we use selectors, but if that's not going to work, we can do it this way. The other way to select this would be, give me all the input elements, or maybe the input elements with type equals text, like that. So that's another legal CSS selector, and that will get me just this one as well, because there's only one on the page that matches that. So if I want to know what's in there right now, the value of it, .val tells me what it is, and .val with something else will set it for me like that. Okay, so here we go. HTML, ATTR, val, and CSS. Okay, and here's the raw JavaScript equivalents. This one has no equivalent. This one will tell you what the font size is of the heading. So if I copy this, and paste this out here, it'll find it for me. There's no way to do that with raw JavaScript. If I go document.getElement by ID, heading, .style, I shouldn't say there's no way to do it. There's no easy way to do it. Font size, like that. It's not set, because all it's doing is it's looking at the style attribute of the element, and it's not set there. It's set somewhere else. It's set in the default, probably in the default CSS style sheet for the browser, which you can get access to, but jQuery makes it much easier for you. It goes and figures it out and lets you know what its current font size is, which is cool. And then yeah, this is using them to get information. This is using them to set information. And here's a bunch of chaining. So here we go. So this will take all the links on the page, and it will change them to white with a background color of black. It will change HTML to link changed, and it will change where they go to. We just did that, so let's go back to google.com. There we go. So I just changed that link. All those elements of that link I changed by chaining a bunch of functions together. So pretty cool. By the way, if you want to change CSS all at once, let's do td.even. If you want to change more than one CSS property, there is another way to do it as well. What you can do is you can pass an object which has, so for example, color red, comma, background color. You have to use camel case here. Blue, comma, what else can I change? I don't think border is going to work in a table. How about font size? Needs to be camel case. 20 pixel, like that. There we go. They went red on blue, and they all got bigger. Using this, what I'm doing here is I'm creating an object or an associative array with a bunch of fields in it. So you can do it in one call as well, or you can do it in two separate calls like I've done here. All right, I think that's, I also wanted to show you, so classes, if you want to do classes, you can do it like this. You can add a class name, remove a class name, or toggle a class name. So toggle means if the element has that class name, it removes it, and if it doesn't, it adds it. So I can say td add class even, which is going to add the even. Whoops, that's not right. So you can have multiple class names on an element. So I just added the class even to all of them. Let's add the class odd to all of them. And let's remove class even. I guess that doesn't, why is that not changing anything? Let's reset everything here. It might be because I've added so much. There we go. Remove class even. Add class odd. Like that. Now they'll all be the same color because they all have the class odd added. I think because I had made so many changes previously, it wasn't easy to see what was going on. And you've also got toggle class, like I said, which if you go $td toggle even, it will remove the class even from all the things that have it and add it to all of the things that don't. So that's how you deal with classes. And then finally, and this is the really fun stuff, some animations. So let me show you how this works. So let's fade out the instructions. So there are a bunch of built-in animations. Fade in, fade out. There's also slide up. Lowercase s. Slide up. Slide down. To make it show again. Pretty cool. I think these only work when you have, if you look at the this element here, right here, it's got a position of absolute. You need that in order for this to work properly for these animations. Okay, so you've got fade in, fade out. You've also got fade to, which is kind of nice. Instructions. So it fades to a particular opacity. So opacity of 1 means it's completely visible. Opacity of 0 means it's invisible. Oh, by the way, you can do fade. These all have optional parameters as well. So if you want a slower fade, you can say fade out over 2,000 milliseconds and it will slowly fade out. The default, I think, is 500 milliseconds. So fade in. And we can go fade to. We say we want it to go for 2,000 milliseconds and just go to half opacity. So then it kind of partially fades out like that, which is kind of neat. Alrighty. You can also, fade out and then fade back in too, like this. So if you check this out here, maybe you don't need to have, wait, let me reload here. And then we'll do this. So fade out and then fade in. So they faded out quickly over 500 milliseconds and then faded back in. The one thing that you have to watch out for, though, is that what these things happen asynchronously. So it will schedule a fade out to start, and then it will immediately move on before the fade out has even started. And it will schedule a fade in, and it's smart enough to know that you'll want the fade in to happen after the fade out. But other things that you chain onto here. So for example, if I do this, I want it to fade out and then fade back in, and then I want to see X's in the boxes. So TD odd is supposed to do that, but it won't work. Here, watch carefully. See, the X appeared right away. That's not what I wanted. I'll show you again. I wanted the X to appear after the fade in, but it appeared right away because the animations are done asynchronously. They're done, so it stacks the two of them together, but it just sets them up and then moves on immediately to this. So what happens is it starts the fade out, schedules a fade in, then immediately sets the X content, so we see the X content appear immediately, and then the fade outs and fade ins happen asynchronously. So what we actually need to do here is we need to add what's called a callback function. So you can do this callback function like that, and you can say that. Here we could do it this way. We could say td.odd.htmlx like that. So that's one way to do it. So this function is called a callback function. It will not be run until after this fade in is complete. So now it will do what we want. It'll fade out, it'll fade back in, and then it'll run the callback function, which will put the X in the boxes. So fade out, fade in, X. It's not super efficient though. What we really want is to do this. So it will attach this call. It will call this callback function on each of the elements. It's doing all of these operations on every element, and this is set up so that this will refer to the current element. So we do this, and then each of these calls to this function will only do this on one of the elements. There we go. Okay, I think that's everything. This explains callback functions. Slide up, slide. Oh, you've also got hide and show, which is nice. And yeah, there is another type of animation that you can do. So there's a more generic animate method, which you can give it CSS properties like this. Inside the curly brackets, you can give it a list of CSS properties, and it will, as long as it can, it can't animate every single property, but it will change. So for example here, font size to 30 pixels, but it will animate it. So it'll gradually move towards that value. And you can put an optional parameter here for the duration. So let's try this one here. So this will change the font size and the width of this box over 2,000 milliseconds. So there, the box gets bigger and the font size gets bigger together. And if we want to go back, we could go back to width, it's probably 400. And a font size of, let's make it really small, 5. So then it gets small with a tiny little font size. So pretty neat. And you can also do callback functions here as well. So I can add another parameter on the end that's a callback function. I can do $this.css background color blue. I think I got the syntax right. So it's going to animate. Let's make this back to 50 pixels and this to 700 pixels. So it'll get big, and when it's all done, changes to blue. So pretty powerful little library. Yeah, that's it for this video. That's all the basics. So I think what you guys should do is immediately go and try this stuff out. And if you go take a look at the exercises here, there's just a bunch to work through. Okay, so it says try the following in the JavaScript console, like I was just doing with the jQuery sandbox example loaded. So just work through all of these. And then animations, try these animations. So again, just in the JavaScript console. Okay, if you want to put them directly into the page itself, you can do that, but we won't be able to do very much with that until we do the stuff on events. So we'll do the next video on events, and then we'll be putting some code actually onto the page itself in response to events. Okay, so just some stuff to try. I think it's pretty fun, especially when you get to the animations, and I think you will be asking yourself, why didn't Sam show us this at the beginning? It would have made our life so much easier. And the answer is just that, you know, it's as with everything, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinion probably, to effectively use a library like this, you have to understand what's going on under the hood, and you have to be able to compare it to the raw JavaScript. That's one reason, but there's another reason too, and the other reason is that even with jQuery, even as powerful as it is, if you're writing anything that's non-trivial, eventually you will come to a place where you need to do something and jQuery just doesn't quite do what you want it to do. So then you have to go back to the raw JavaScript and write it for yourself that way. So you need to understand JavaScript to be able to use jQuery effectively. Okay, that's it. I will create another video for part 2 of this. And then, like I said, I want you to read Module C on your own, read over it on your own, and we'll go over that in class. But in the meantime, try some exercises before you get to video number 2.